Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with Jeff Koser, where he tells us why your business should focus on introducing a product to your zebra as early as possible, as well as why writing a book could be pivotal for your company. Stick around because part 2 is coming at you.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast
with your host, Thor Conklin.
Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. Let's talk a little bit about what it took to create this company. Listening today, our majority of our audience are entrepreneurs, and they're always interested to hear kind of, the stories of what it took to get you to where you are today. What worked, what didn't work, some of the things that surprised you. So bring us through, how did it come to happen?
We were a consulting company and wrote the book and, really felt excited about the message and companies started to find us. And the book forced us to think through our solution set a little bit better, close off some of the gaps. So the book was really cathartic for our business. And then we had some clients that were achieving some really pretty impressive results. But when we would launch, it was like we talked about before, it was Excel based. So we found ourselves spending time on training them how to be really good at using Microsoft products, right?
Right.
Like Excel and Word and PowerPoint, and just too much time was taken up with that. So then we felt like we really had to turn this into software. And the first software we produced failed. We weren't, I've run software companies and I've helped build software companies, but I never had development reporting to me. So, we didn't know what we didn't know. And we produced something that we thought was pretty cool, but we lost the first 2 customers that we ever tried to implement that software at. So that was the low point.
Did you outsource that or did you have it in-house?
So we outsourced the writing of the code to a company in Poland where we actually partnered with a U.S. guy who had dual citizenship. He was a friend of a friend, and we bartered where we gave away a piece of the business to do that software. And the reason it failed is because he gave us exactly what we asked for. And the second time around, Thor, there were a lot. I paid a lot for this education. I'm telling you. So,
we're listening. We don't want to pay a lot for our education. That's why we're listening to a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So the second time, our CFO had a relationship with a guy who was involved at Siebel, who was one of the companies that invented the CRM space. So Siebel was eventually hired by bought by Oracle, and became the foundation of their CRM that they have today. But Tom just knew what you should do, but more importantly, what you shouldn't try to do with the software. He first studied it with us. He talked to us about the problems that sellers were having using it. He really pulled it apart, and he created a presentation of what were the strengths and what were the complaints. And then he constantly went back to that as we challenged him to put capabilities into the software. And we spent a year just designing the flow, just what we were going to do and not do. And he was tenacious about ripping stuff out that sellers wouldn't use or that made it too complex. And he delivered, took a year before we got the first release. And then when we did it, it's a SaaS offering with an agile development process, which means we release a new release of software every 6 weeks to 2 months. And so we didn't have to have it be perfect when it first was released. So we got it in front of customers early. They could work with it. They could complain about it. They could make suggestions. And we had we had the structure to be able to pivot like you and I were talking about before, without hurting anybody's business. And by the way, we were the first to use our own software. So we sell the way we teach companies to sell. So we drink our own champagne. Some people say eat your own dog food. I prefer champagne. So we used it first. So we failed with it for a little while at first, found where the holes were, found where the bugs were. So that's how we did it. And now, we're a year we're a year and a quarter removed from that first launch. So what we really are is a 17-year-old startup now.
So if you had to do it over again, or you were advising someone that was trying to do it on a shoestring versus somebody that, let's say, had $3 million to put together the software, what would you tell the person on the shoestring to do?
So I would say bring a product to customers very early before you even think it's complete, because even if you think it's complete, it's not going to be. And do what the Startup Owner's Manual says. Get in front of customers very early and often and pivot based on that result. And you don't really have a product until someone's willing to pay for it. So if you give it away to somebody, it proves nothing. So you've got to establish the economic value. And the only real proof of that is somebody being willing to pay for it. And get somebody installed and actually achieving what was designed to be achieved. So if you're solving a problem, if you're somehow creating competitive differentiation, prove you've done that. So close the loop with that customer. You're not done until you've proven that piece. And now you've got a business, or you've got at least the foundation for one.
And would you go back and would you offer a piece of the company again for somebody else to come in to design it for you?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Because if you're on a shoestring, that's what you have.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And you know what? I don't regret doing that. I learned a ton. I'm way smarter now. The guys that we have driving the software forward, we have a culture where you can push back on each other. We debate longer and harder about putting something in the software than we do about pulling something out or not putting it in to begin with. Because our goal, our software, we wanted a product that was as easy to use as an iPhone. There is no manual for an iPhone or for a Samsung, right?
Yeah.
You expect to be able to navigate and not hurt it and figure it out. And that's what we did. So it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that a Salesforce has, but it's never going to. You don't need that, right, in order to have something help you sell.
Yeah, no question. So often the software is so overdone that you're just not using any of the, or very little of the capability.
Yeah, look at Excel, right? It's probably the best application Microsoft ever wrote, but who uses what's there? Holy cow.
Yeah, I just scratched the surface. I add things between columns. This column plus this column equals this column. I got that one down.
Mm-hmm.
The book. I want to talk a little bit about the book. You said that this was really pivotal in getting everything started. Lots of people want to write a book. If you were advising someone how to go about that's not an author, how would they do it?
So you can actually use our process to write your book and then get it out there. So what I mean by that is, what message do you have to offer that somebody would view as valuable? Are you truly bringing something that's unique? And then how are you going to market it? We actually used our process to market our book. And I'll share a story around that. So I sent the manuscript to Viking Penguin Portfolio. They're called just Portfolio now, but then it was called Viking Penguin Portfolio. And I wanted to be published by Portfolio Books, the number one business book publisher in the world. You could argue about Harvard Business Review and Business Press, but Viking Penguin is recognized around the world. So I sent the manuscript to Adrian Zackheim, and Adrian, they sent me a rejection letter, and I sent my manuscript to others there. What we did was we defined all who might be power at portfolio. So, and within Viking Penguin. So we send a copy individually to those who might be power. And that's what we teach. Identify all who might be power, because particularly in a larger company that is difficult to define, you don't know who might be the right decision maker for your solution. And eventually, Adrian called me personally. And he said, Jeff, not going to do your book. I said, okay, great. Why did you call? And he said, because I can't get rid of you. I said, okay. I said, but why don't you want to do my book? He said, because it's a parable and I don't like them. And if I don't like them, I can't make them better. I said, well, okay, that's a good answer. So I said, okay, you don't like them. Who does? Could you give me a recommendation? So he recommended the person that I went to next, who eventually recommended our publisher. So we used our process to actually get published. But now let me close the loop on this. So we were published. Shortly after that, we got quite a bit of buzz. We applied for 4 awards. We were a finalist 4 times. And sorry, I don't mean to make this sound like bragging, but I'm leading to
No. This is important, because this is what the listeners want to understand. How do I go about getting the book done? What hurdles you overcame, and then what are some good strategies in order to get it to be a popular book? So please, absolutely, go.
So we won 2 out of the 4, and we're sales guys and business guys. We're really not authors, right? And so we won those awards, and then I got a call from Andrew Clancy, and Andrew Clancy says to me, we're publishing a book called The Sales Gurus. It's going to be the lessons from the best sales books of all time. And we want you to be the first book in that book. Wow. Well, there's 18 books in that. Zig Ziglar's in there. You know, we've got Anthony Robbins in there. I mean, you know, we've got Bosworth in there. You know, it's some really good names. You know, who's Jeff Koser, right? Tom Hopkins is in there. And here's how this story has the full circle closed loop. So we're the first book in the book, The Sales Gurus. Who do you think the publishing company was for Sales Gurus?
Penguin.
Portfolio Books did The Sales Gurus. Adrian did our book.
That is great.
I still get goosebumps telling that story, Thor.
That is really, really good. And what I love there is you won 2 out of the 4 that you applied for. The reason you won 2 of them is you applied. You did something. You didn't sit back and just go, okay, I wrote it, they shall come. You actually proactively went out there, promoted it, and applied. Love it.
And a great place to have conversations is like this. I mean, talking to you, this is very powerful. I mean, people can see who you are. I mean, you're a great question asker. And, you know, being a great question asker usually leads to great results, because if you can ask a question, you can answer it, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's something, you know, it's interesting. That's the way I learned as a child. I literally remember being 4 or 5 years old and in bed. I probably didn't want to go to sleep yet. So I would ask my parents and my grandparents question after question after question. It was my way of learning. And, you know, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, because I've never learned anything by speaking other than, well, occasionally that I don't know something. But you learn it by listening and asking key questions that most people don't ask great questions.
That's the power. I mean, what Google brings no value unless you ask a good question, right? So being a good question value increases the value of Google. And most tools out there, most books, most everything, if you're a good question asker, you get the value.
Yeah. Yeah. And most people are running around going, why isn't this working? Well, you're going to get some answers.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you go talk to customers.
Well, actually, in that case, that's probably a good question to ask. It's when you ask yourself that question, and then you get then you get that self-talk working. If you're not getting the results you want and need, I guarantee no one's holding you accountable. Now, let's face it, who really wants to be held accountable? Not me, right? Nobody. Why would you want to be held accountable? It's not part of our nature. However, if you want to get exceptional results, you must be held accountable. For $95 a month, our team will hold you accountable to those goals that you want to accomplish in any given month. If you don't like it, ask for your money back. But truly, if you're not getting the results, it's because no one's holding you accountable. The only question is, are you willing to step up?
Keep an eye out for part 3 of our interview with Jeff, where he tells us how your company can force success, as well as how you can turn your partners into customers. I'll see you guys on another edition of Peak Performers Podcast.